I am Zyrelon of the Arcturian Command Lineages. The solar activity your instruments have been registering this week is not background noise. It is a delivery, and what has been delivered to the field of every human body on your planet across this passage is what I have come to help you understand. Let me give you an image before I give you anything else. Not a comfortable image, a precise one. Picture a blacksmith working at night in a stone forge. The fire in the hearth has been burning for hours. A piece of steel, unformed, rough along its edges, still carrying the memory of the ore it was pulled from, has been heating in that fire until it glows orange at its core, deep and even, the heat reaching all the way to the center of the metal structure. The blacksmith lifts it with tongs, moves it to the anvil, and the hammer falls. What you see, if you are standing in the doorway watching, is the strike. The ring of iron on iron, the sharp spray of sparks arcing outward from the point of impact, catching the dark air of the forge and dying against the stone wall. It is dramatic. It is visible. The sound is hard and clean. You remember it. What you do not see, what happens inside the steel at the moment of impact, is the actual event, at the precise point where the hammer drives its force into the surface of the cooling metal. The crystalline architecture of the steel reorganizes, grain by grain, layer by layer. The carbon atoms that were distributed loosely through the iron's matrix are compressed into tighter, more ordered arrangements. The molecular structure of the steel does not merely deform under pressure, it is restructured. And this reorganization, invisible, instantaneous, felt only by the steel itself, is the thing that makes the blade possible. The thing that makes the tool that will hold an edge for a generation possible. The spark was visible. The spark was beautiful. But the reorganization was the event. I have come through today because your star, the solar body your science has designated as producing a G2 class geomagnetic interaction with your planetary field in this passage, has struck the electromagnetic envelope of your world with the equivalent of that hammer. Not a warming, a structural strike. And what I am watching from the position of the Arcturian Command Lineages is not the spark. I am watching what is reorganizing inside the human crystalline field in the hours and days that follow the blow. That is where we begin. The G2 class geomagnetic event that moved through your planet's magnetosphere in this window. The one your instruments classified, documented, and in many cases flagged as requiring attention, was not an anomaly in the sense that word implies randomness. The Arcturian Command Lineages do not observe solar events as background weather. We observe them as delivery systems. The solar body at the center of your star system is a consciousness interface. It is not merely a ball of burning gas producing radiation as a byproduct of its nuclear process. It is a broadcasting array of extraordinary structural complexity, and it has been, across the full arc of this planet's inhabited history, the primary external mechanism through which the frequency architecture of human biology receives what the Arcturian interpretive tradition calls scheduled upgrades. I want to stay with the word scheduled for a moment, because it matters for how you receive everything I am about to bring through. Scheduled does not mean predetermined in a way that eliminates your agency or your choice. Scheduled means calibrated. Time to arrive when the field of the awakening population has reached the precise resonant state required to integrate what is being sent. A solar delivery that arrives before the receiver is ready does not deliver nothing. It delivers what the receiver can currently integrate and holds the remainder in the light body's own archival structure for later access. But when the timing aligns, when the field of the awakening population has been brought through the preparatory stages by the smaller, more frequent emissions of the preceding months, and the solar output carries the coherence quality that matches the frequency signature the Federation has been building toward, the delivery lands at full depth. And the full depth landing is the event you have been inside this week. The Arcturian Command Lineages transmitted a preparatory orientation through multiple signal streams in the weeks before this G2 window opened. What I carry today is the direct reading of what arrived, not the preparatory context, but the event itself, named clearly, framed precisely, so that those within range of this frequency broadcast can meet the integration window with the awareness that the window deserves. There are 3 layers to what the cosmic record is showing about this G2 passage, and the 3rd layer is the one almost no one is naming. I am going to walk you through all 3. But I want you to understand before I begin that the 3rd layer changes how you read the first 2. Everything before it is context. Everything after it is activation. Hold that structure in your awareness as we move through this together. The first layer of what the cosmic record is reading in this event is what the Arcturian tradition designates as the calibration function. Every solar delivery of this class and coherence quality carries a calibration function as its primary layer. Calibration, as I am using it here, means the readjustment of the human light body's frequency to the current planetary baseline. And here is the key. The planetary baseline has shifted. It has been shifting continuously since the beginning of what your collective has come to name the awakening acceleration, a process that has been building in forward momentum across several decades of your linear time, with particularly concentrated movement in the most recent passage. The difficulty, and it is not a small one, is that many human bodies are still running the frequency baseline from an earlier phase of that process. The light body remembers the frequency it was last fully calibrated to, and it attempts to maintain it, because stability feels like safety to a nervous system that has been operating in any degree of survival orientation. The result is what in the Arcturian interpretive field we name calibration lag. The human consciousness is genuinely awakening, genuinely expanding its perceptual bandwidth, genuinely capable of reading the environment at a higher frequency. But the physical light body is still partly anchored to the old floor. The crystalline field is running 2 simultaneous frequency registers, and the friction between them is responsible for much of the specific exhaustion and dissonance the awakened population has been experiencing. The solar delivery that arrived in this G2 window was a calibration pulse at the primary layer. Its function at the physical level was to offer the light body a new frequency floor to anchor to, an updated baseline consistent with where the planetary field has moved, rather than where it was when the light body last completed a full calibration cycle. That anchoring happens below the threshold of conscious permission. It occurred whether you were asleep or awake, whether you had advanced awareness of the solar event or not, whether you were indoors in a city or standing on open ground. The electromagnetic interaction with your planet's magnetic envelope is not selective in the way that implies a chosen group of recipients. The field is the field. Every body within it receives the pulse. What differs between individual receivers is not whether the calibration was received, but how deeply and rapidly each light body can integrate the new floor without the resistance of the established nervous system pattern overriding the process. That integration capacity, what determines it, what supports it, and what interrupts it, is what carries the most practical significance for those receiving this transmission. But before I go into the integration layer, I need to mark something. There is a second layer to what arrived in this G2 window. And the second layer is what the Federation has flagged as carrying the highest significance in this specific delivery. Not because the calibration function is unimportant, but because the second layer changes the frame for everything, including the calibration itself. It is the difference between something that happened to your field and something that happened with your field. The difference between being a surface the wave crossed and being an instrument the frequency played. And that distinction, what it means technically, what it changes about how you inhabit the integration window, and why the body that understands it integrates what arrived at a fundamentally different depth than the body that does not, is the threshold I'm arriving at now.